Tonight, Damian Wayne shows us why it's just so easy to keep killing off Robins. Does Geoff Johns really expect me to read 7 years worth of backstory before an issue 1? And Dexter might just be the cutest little ball of unbridled rage I've ever seen. All this and more on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of the Not So New 52. I am your host, and I don't think I really should have set the precedent of trying to open up with some thing to talk about before we get into the comics. I don't think I can keep that up for 250 plus episodes. Here's the thing. Pandora, the character who made all this happen at the end of Flashpoint, in all of the issue 1s that we have and will be doing for this entire month, she makes an appearance in at least one panel in all of them. Sometimes pretty hidden, sometimes in the forefront of the frame, but always in a way that doesn't actually really matter at all. So I'm not going to be mentioning her. I haven't been mentioning her, but now you know she's there, and pretty much doesn't matter in any regard, and won't for, if I remember correctly, about another year. So cool. Anyway, books for this week. That's what you're here for. September 14th, 2011. What books came out in the order I will be reviewing them in this episode? We have Batman and Robin #1, Batwoman #1, Superboy #1, Green Lantern #1, Red Lanterns #1, Mr. Terrific #1, Deathstroke #1, Grifter #1, Suicide Squad #1, Legion Lost #1, Demon Knights #1, Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E. #1, and Resurrection Man #1. A lot of those books I have never checked out, so this was my first time reading through them. But let's kick it all off this week with Batman and Robin #1. Batman and Robin #1, written by Peter J. Tomasi, art by Patrick Gleason. If you're not familiar with Tomasi and Gleason, they have done a lot of stuff post New 52 that I really like, so this was a very fun read for me. For everyone unfamiliar, just going into this, Batman had a son. His name is Damian Wayne. He was trained by assassins. He then found out Batman was his dad and became the new Robin. And then Batman died and, well, actually went back in time. But anyway, he died as far as anyone knew. And Dick Grayson, the first Robin, became the new Batman, and his Robin was Damian. And Damian kind of had to get over all the little, homicidal tendencies that come along with being trained by assassins. So that was where most of his character development came from, in terms of not being terrible. And then this book starts, and oh boy, he's just terrible again. He's just awful. He's the worst. So getting into it, we open in Russia. There's some criminal running away from a giant, scary-looking Batman. It's Batman of Russia. He doesn't get a name, but this is because when Batman came back from the dead, he started up a team, Batman of Many Nations, I think it was, and it just had a bunch of Batman all across the globe, and they were funded by Bruce Wayne. Anyway, this is the one from Russia, and he says, "Oh, I'm an ally of the Bat, and I've come for you." And then a gun shoots him in the head. I'm not talking about a person holding a gun. I'm talking about a gun that Batman is holding. It's a floating gun. It just is there, shooting not Batman, the criminal in the head. But then it turns and starts shooting Batman, and then breaks Batman's leg and his arm and smashes open his mask. And then you see that it's not a floating gun, it's an invisible person. An invisible person says that his name is Nobody, and so is this Batman. Cut to Gotham City with the real Batman. He's brooding in his manner, and he talks to the bust of his father, saying that it's time for a change. He goes to wake up Damian, saying that it's time to go on patrol, but they got to make a stop first. And this entire time, everything that Bruce says, Damian is just a sarcastic little brat. Every single thing. He's like 10, so, it's fair. But, I'll get to some of the specifics of stuff later. But anyway, he tells him, like, tonight's the night that my parents died, all those years ago. I want you to come with. I want you to understand, these were your grandparents. I want you to know what the deal is. But I'm sick of celebrating their death when I should be I should be celebrating their life. I'm sick of celebrating their death. So from now on, we're going to be celebrating their wedding instead of their death. And this whole time, Damien's like, I don't care. Do whatever you want. Like, none of this matters. This is all stupid and sentimental, quote, in big bold letters here, sentimental nonsense. But Batman's trying to explain to him, like, stop being so terrible all the time. And then they get an alert from Alfred saying that something's going down at the Gotham University. We cut to Gotham University, and I guess, Gotham University has a nuclear reactor section because they're just draining all the nuclear rods of their irradiated fuel. And it's just some random guys, as far as I can tell. It's not like anybody associated with anybody. But Batman and Robin bust in, start beating up the guys. Two of the guys start making their way towards an exit. One of the guys, Batman's taken out. The people who made it to the exit start hopping onto... I'm pretty sure it's the ride that Batman and Robin took in here. Like, it looks similar, but it might be something else. I'm not sure. Point being is that Robin starts to follow them. Batman specifically tells him, don't follow them, but he's like, I'm following them. And then he lands on top of the thing, and Batman tells him, don't land on top of the thing. And he lands on top of the thing. Then he tells them he wants to take them out before they get away. And he knocks the ship off course, which in itself isn't terrible. The terrible thing is that their backpacks were full of highly irradiated fuel, and when they started crashing, it kind of, murdered them all. Meanwhile, this whole time, Batman, he was dealing with the guy, and when the other people escaped, the fuel, like the pool that the fuel rods were kept in, got breached, so they were about to go into meltdown. So Batman got some blueprints for the university, found out very luckily that the swimming pool was just above them, so he blew a hole in the roof, all the swimming pool water came down, and saved the day. Cut to Commissioner Gordon and the rest of the police are there like, wow, that sure was lucky. Who do you think did this, Gordon? He's like, I don't know, detective. So anyway, they examine the wreckage of all the murdered bodies, and Batman's like, we have a no-kill rule, dude. And he's like, I didn't kill him. I knocked him off course. The fuel killed him. He's like, you're so terrible. And he tells him basically he can't trust him to be his partner because, he's his son, not his partner right now. And he's just, it kind of sounds like he's benching him, but he doesn't officially say that. But Damien's just upset because, Dick trusted him, so why can't his own dad? And that's kind of where we leave off. There's one epilogue page of the Batman from Moscow, beaten and bloodied, tied over a literal pool of acid, and nobody, the guy, is slowly lowering him in and says that this new global circus act of his has to end. It's time to pay Bruce Wayne a visit. So... nobody's coming to Gotham. And again, it's common knowledge that Bruce Wayne is funding these Batmen. That is common knowledge in the universe, assumedly. Who knows what got changed in the reboot. So, it's not that he knows Bruce Wayne is Batman. It's that he knows Bruce Wayne knows Batman. So, overall, great issue. Art, fantastic. I never have a problem with Gleason's art. They go really heavy on the inks, but that really just works for Batman in general. The whole sequence when they don't actually go to Crime Alley. They go to the sewer underneath Crime Alley to mourn his parents' death. And there's this beautiful shot of his mother's pearls coming down through the sewer grate. And Batman says, I can still see my mother's pearls rolling into the sewer. Fantastic panel. Really is great. And there's tons of those throughout here. But again, the whole time, Damien's just awful. Like, every single thing here. Like, That's why from here on out I'll be honoring their wedding anniversary and not their final night on the planet. And then Damien's response is, dead is dead. I'm glad you're putting this sentimental nonsense behind you. How about we get back to work and find some evil to punish? It's like, dude, just like, stop. He's awful. But I can tell that's going to be part of his character arc. So, hey, set him up as terribly as you want, as long as he grows in some regard. I do like one line here they have is Batman folds a little paper boat to mourn his parents out of the playbill for what was playing that night in the theater of Zorro. And Damien says, you can't just build a boat and hope darkness magically sails away in it. And Batman responds, why not? It's my boat. Good line. Good sequence. I really like this issue overall. Sets up the villain quite nicely, just like 3 pages in the front, 1 page in the back. But overall was more setting up Batman and Robin, which it should be in an issue number 1. So overall, art, great. Writing, fantastic. I'm going to give this an 8.5. It's very good. If you haven't read this yet, I think I read the first arc, but it was so long ago, I can't really remember how it goes. But I don't remember hating it, so probably check it out. Batwoman number 1, written by W. Haden Blackman and written and art by J.H. Williams III. This is a confusing one, so I'm just going to really quick try to explain it. So this trade, at least, opens up not with issue 1, but with issue 0. However, issue 0 was actually released 10 months prior to issue 1 and the start of the New 52 as a whole, so it wasn't ever really in this continuity. But I mean, Batwoman also never had a series before this one, so it's all touchy. All you really need to know about Batwoman's history is she appeared shortly, was it during Final Crisis or after Final Crisis? I don't know, one of those things. She is Kate Kane. She is Batman's cousin through his mom's brother. They don't talk or get along. Well, I mean, the families don't talk or get along. She's a military brat. Her dad is a high-ranking military member. She was in the army or some branch of the military. She was kicked out for violating Don't Ask, Don't Tell because she is super gay. And her dad helped her become Batwoman for some reason. Also, there was a whole thing about her mom and her twin sister being dead, but her mom is dead, but her twin sister isn't, and also became a supervillain, possibly named Alice, but there's not confirmation on that, but probably. It's all apparently covered in Batwoman Elegy, which I have not read. I'm told it's great, so check it out if you want. But, yeah, all that is taken as canon. And then we get into this. So, it opens up with a couple recounting to the police what happened. And basically, it's, for those familiar with, I believe it's one of the Conjuring movies, The Curse of La Llorona. I'm going to mess that up at some point over this arc. But La Llorona, she came in. It's a ghost who's crying and saying how basically she wants children. She's just kidnapping children. And either she kidnaps them or drowns them in her tears. So a family had to watch this happening, and they explained like what it felt like. She took the air, took their breath. It was cold, like falling through ice. And then Batwoman comes in. The kids are already gone, but Batwoman, she tries to. Well, sorry, they're not already gone, but they're already pretty much captured. She tries to attack the ghost. The ghost disappears. The kids disappear with it. And then she stays with the family until the police arrive. And they are recounting all of this to Detective Maggie Sawyer, who is just doing her best trying to understand what's happening. Apparently, many other children have been captured. 12 in all, including their 3. And she says, like, look, I'm not going to stop looking. I'm glad Batwoman was there, but we're gonna do our job now. Cut to down in the lobby of the Gotham City Police Department, and Kate Kane is there, and she's looking at a picture of her old flame Renee Montoya, who has her own history. I'm not going to get into unless it comes up explicitly, but there's a thing there. basically she just came in to say, hey, I want to go on a date. When are you going to ask me out? She's like, oh, I gave you my card. And she's like, oh, you're a detective. You should have just tracked me down. But anyway, they say, all right, well, let's go out for beer or something. Cut to Kate at her, I guess, base is the best thing you can call it, that her and her dad made. And she's with her, it's some sort of family member of some sort. They don't explicitly say who, but her name is Bet. And she went by Flamebird at some point. I'm assuming all this was an elegy, by the way. I'm very uneducated on this point, which doesn't make it a great jumping in point, but hey, we'll deal. Her name is Bet. She went by Flamebird, but I guess she got the crap kicked out of her. So now she's back to being pleb in just a gray, drab-looking outfit. They get changed into their costumes. They go dashing over rooftops. And then we cut to the DEO, the Department of Extra Normal Operations. There's a meeting between Agent Chase and Director Bones, who's just a skeleton man wearing a suit, smoking a cigar, and he's fantastic. But anyway, Chase is brought in for a new assignment from Bones. Basically, it all just boils down to, yeah, we want you sent to Gotham. We need to figure out, there's a terrorist group in Gotham named Medusa, and somehow Batwoman is connected to it, so try to track down who Batwoman is. Also, they very casually mention, quote, we're still tying up loose ends from that terrorist act in the skies over Gotham Harbor. I have no idea what they're talking about. Absolutely none. Hopefully that gets resolved here, but we'll see. Next page, we got to another child has been drowned with a sibling that was, a younger cousin that was taken. Sawyer's talking to Commissioner Gordon and is like, hey, it's the only lead I've got is La Llorona, and that's just a myth. I got nothing else to go off of. And Gordon's just like, if you got anything, you chase it down and you keep going, whether or not you think it's an urban legend. Batwoman is standing over listening to all this from the shadows. Then we see that Batwoman and Bat are changing back into their civvies, and we see how they went and beat up what was her name? The Cue Ball and the Pool Hall gang. Terrifying, truly. And Bet's just complaining, like, man, I fought Deathstroke. I don't need to be a pleb. And Kate's just complaining that she wasn't paying any attention. She was just getting into the fight. And then Kate's dad shows up out of the blue, and we get this whole... See, I'm going to gush on the art at the end here, but we get this whole sequence of, like, what I assume is all of her history. And she basically chews her dad out for knowing that her sister was alive and not telling her, and now that she's gone again, because I guess she's gone again, her dad says, all right, well, we just soldiered on, so get over it. And he's like, no, I'm out, bye. Cut to, she's back in her Batwoman outfit, she's checking out where those kids disappeared, and Batman approaches her and says, hey, I don't care if you're Batwoman, but I have a proposition for you. And so ends the issue. I cannot tell you how wonderful the layouts in this book are. They are so gorgeous. Like, every single page, there's at no point is there ever just a stereotypical panel. Everything, like when it's La Llorona, everything feels like water. When it gets to action scenes, everything's all jagged. When it gets to the disappearance of the kid, and it's all mysterious, there's just wavy lines. It's so fantastic. I cannot gush over J.H. Williams' art anymore. It's so good. There's a painterly aspect to it. It's just beautiful. The only times that it has a normal sort of panel layout, and even then it's stylized, is when she's not as Batwoman, when she's just Kate Kane. And I think that works for the story as well. So, writing-wise, it's not a good writing for a reboot. I feel like I'm missing a lot. They do a couple of those things where it's like, well, you should have told me this thing, and then they go on to explain the thing. Just for the sake of the reader. I get that. That's fine. But it's just a lot. But part of that comes down to the fact that this is Batwoman's first series, period. So they had a lot to cover. But overall, the art just blows me away. It's fantastic. So overall, I'd say I'm going to give this a 8 It's very good. I wish it had explained a little bit more. I'm not counting the 0 issue in on this, just what came with issue 1. So that's why it's not higher than it is. But I'm giving it an 8, and that's still pretty damn good. Superboy number 1, written by Scott Lobdell, art by R.B. Silva. Before anything else, I need to read this quote on the front of this trade because it's just a storyline that will leave you wanting more. Already an iffy quote, but the source is the Christian Science Monitor. I don't know what to expect from this book. I have no idea what to expect from this book. Have you ever tried predicting Scott Lobdell? It's not easy. Oh, God. Okay. So, I don't even know if I can give a synopsis of Superboy. Superboy was the name that Superman took back when he... In the Golden Age, they wanted to like have the young adventures of Superman, so they named him Superboy. But then when Crisis on Infinite Earths happens, it was hard to have... Like, Superboy was different. So, by the time they hit the death of Superman, they created a young clone of Superman named Superboy. He had his own shtick, he has his own thing going on, but one thing that eventually developed is that he's half human and half Kryptonian, and that's the one we're dealing with here. So, just jumping into it, he's in a tube. He's all hooked up, he's got wires, he's just floating in some amniotic fluid, and he doesn't know who he is or anything about himself. He doesn't know anything. He hasn't been born yet. So he's just floating in a tube, and all these scientists, he can see them. They're all running tests on him. And he's watching them, and he's picking up on them. And he says that his consciousness is spread equally throughout every cell of his body. What does that mean? I don't know, but he did. All the scientists are basically saying, like, look, we've reached the end of our rope here. We're not getting to respond to anything. We're not sensing any sort of brain function because his subconscious... whatever. So he's like, we got to terminate the program. It's the only way. So there's this one redheaded scientist that I don't think ever actually has a name. Superboy just keeps calling her Red, so she's Red. There's one redheaded scientist, and she's the only one who's like, no, we can do this. Superboy, like, he's so close. Maybe we're just viewing this the wrong way. And the other scientist is like, it's not a he. It's an it. And we're killing him. She leaves the office. They start the termination protocols. Superboy is able to sense that something is wrong as they start pumping cyanide into his veins. He feels the burning, and then he just straight up explodes. He's got this massive telekinetic burst. It triggers all the defenses. Everything's exploding, and everyone in the lab dies except for Superboy. Red gets the doors open. She does have her name as Dr. Kate something, so it's Caitlin, I'm assuming, but I don't know her last name. Superboy, he's bald and in a Speedo. He's sensing the world finally. I love this way that it's described. It's just individual, just super quick thoughts. Hands, body, air, touch, feel, awake, freedom, sound, ear, voice, as Caitlin is talking to him. She says that he's floating, so he's then immediately gravity, acceleration. It's just all the things that he's quickly realizing, as he is hyper intelligent to some extent. Basically, he's like, okay, my name is Superboy. That's all he's able to say. 1 month later, skip straight ahead. He's enrolled in a high school somewhere in the heart of Kansas. Teacher calls him out on this question of if we were 300,000 light years from Earth and blah blah blah, when would we have to leave? And the guy, Superboy's like, well, I guess the answer would be so and so, and he just knows it. He literally lists off 2300 a.m. Mars Standard Time according to the Universal Chronal Chart established. He listed off this whole thing. He's like, I have no idea where that came from, but it's somewhere in here. He stopped by one of the girls in his class. Her name is Rose Wilson. If you know who that is, then you know who that is, but we're not there yet. Just this one line here. Haha, right? Rose Wilson, isn't it? quote from Rose Wilson, "It is, but you can call me, quote, the hot chick I'm going to walk home from school." Oh, Lobdell, you did it again. He's walking Rose home, and she goes on this whole nihilistic thing of like, life is just a string of random occurrences. We're born through no fault of our own, exposed to a series of endless humiliations. She's got a thing going on. They're just walking home, talking. They pass by this house that's on fire with this woman screaming help, and nobody's reacting to it. Rose makes the posit. She's like, Oh, sorry, Superboy, his cover story is that he has some form of amnesia. He remembers facts and has like a sense of self, but he doesn't actually remember who he is or where he lived or anything like that. Rose posits this point of like, well, does that amnesia affect your morality? And she's like, I don't think it does, but he's not really sure himself. We see he gets home. He's on a small Kansas farm. There's a family who's giving him dinner and all that. And he's like, wow, thanks for the dinner, you guys. It was great. I got to go get some sleep. I got some tests in the city tomorrow. And so but in his mind, he's just saying everything here is so boring. I'm so bored all the time. But apparently the whole thing is all just VR. It's all just a simulation that the scientists are running on him just to see, like, what does any of this mean? Because they extracted from the memories of his, like, clone memories that small town Kansas means something to him. But what exactly, they can't figure out. So they're trying to figure out what that is. They're also realizing that he doesn't really have a sense of morality. Like, he's not responding to the woman burning in that building at all. So they're wondering why Superman, like, these small town Kansas things are a thing, but the morality isn't a thing. And they don't know who Superman is. They're wondering why small town Kansas is a thing for Superman as well, but they can't, like, pin it on someone. Anyway, so they feel like it's a failure because they can't figure out, like, why he doesn't have morality, so they're just striving to work harder. Enter the real Rose Wilson, who's working as an on-retainer assassin who is going to kill Superboy if he ever snaps again. So that's her whole thing, but she's just, a real person outside of the VR. She does make a comment, and don't think I didn't notice that VR version of me is a total Mary Sue. Great. We cut over to a guy named Umbar, I think? No, Umber, my bad. His name is Umber. He's just a scientist. He doesn't like what this place is doing. By the way, the place is called Nowhere. It's an acronym, Nowhere. I don't know what it means. I don't care what it means, and they don't say what it means, so we're moving on. He doesn't like that they are literally creating a Superman clone for their own nefarious purposes, so he gets in contact with Lois Lane, and it's like, here's all the stuff they're doing, Lois. Like, he doesn't give her everything, but he gives them enough to, like, damn the company or the organization or whatever the fuck it is. So he passes it on, and then we just leave that. Like, we don't get anywhere with it. The next morning, Superboy, he's brought in, and they're trying to train his telekinesis, because apparently that's just the power he has, is telekinesis. He can move stuff with his mind. The red scientist is interrupted, saying, like, hey, you're needed. She's like, no one has the authority to, like, call me up. And she's like, well, here's a name. It's Templar. Apparently he is the authority. This guy walks in. His name is Zaniel. And he's like, oh, how's Superboy going? She's like, he's not ready for whatever you want him for. And he's like, all right, well, I'm taking him. And apparently Zaniel's plan is to have him infiltrate the Teen Titans. They don't say why. They just say the Teen Titans are a problem and Superboy is the solution. And then Superboy says, well, I'm going to play along with whatever it is they want me to do so that I can finally be free. That's kind of his whole shtick, is freedom. It's not great. It's not. Like, This thing was throwing so many curveballs at me. I really like the sequence where he first, like, feels things. I really like that part where he's, like, just rapid fire. Like, he's just experiencing everything to do with life all at once. And it's just immediate, just small caption boxes, just one after another. I like that. I really do. The whole, like, Rose Wilson thing, not so much. I like the whole... It's just like a surrealist thing of him just walking by this building. This woman is screaming in a burning building. There's... Like, every other page bounces between, I like this, to, oh, what are you doing? It's really hard to get a track on it. As it stands, though, I'm just going to give it the average of, I enjoyed the read. It set up some good things moving forward. You got the mystery of, what is nowhere? Who are these people? Why are the Teen Titans an issue? The general plot beats I'm okay with. It's the dialogue itself, for the most part, that I'm like, okay, I don't like... Why does Rose Wilson have to be, like, the hot chick he walked... Why do we have to say that? That's the part that I'm like, just... People don't, like, talk like that. But either way, I like the plot beats. Art-wise, it's fine. It's pretty basic. You got some... Yeah, like, it's all thick outlines and nothing too mind-blowing with any of it. If anything, it gets a little bit too much on the green in some places, but that's just... I think that's just the color of nowhere. That's just the aesthetic they're going for, but whatever. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. I'm going to give this a 6. It's fine. It's not blowing me out of the water. That one sequence with him, like, just rapid fire discovering the world, that's about the most I can praise it. Everything else is fine. I guess we'll see where it goes. I'm hoping that it isn't too much of a direct crossover with Teen Titans, because I like to keep these reviews pretty separated from each other so that you can view them individually. But hey, check out Teen Titans whenever that comes up, in case it is a very, very heavy crossover. So, yeah. Green Lantern #1, written by Geoff Johns, art by Doug Mahnke. I think I've already mentioned at some point that I never really read the Geoff Johns stuff. This is in the middle of his massive Green Lanterns epic, starting with bringing Hal Jordan back from the dead and continuing on to create the entire other core system. Everything besides the Green Lanterns, the Yellow Lanterns, the Red, the Blue, the whatever, all that. It's been a hell of a ride, and I don't know any of it directly. I've heard other people explain it. I've seen recaps. I know the gist of what generally happens. And the last thing that happened before this is the White Lantern Brightest Day story. Blackest Night, Brightest Day was just preceding Flashpoint. So if you want to know where we left off, look up to that point in somebody's recap. You ain't going to get it from me. So, what happens in Green Lantern #1? How do we come back? Well, Sinestro, leader of the Yellow Lanterns, is now a Green Lantern again, as you can tell by the cover. So it opens up, he's saying the Green Lantern oath, brightest day, blackest night, and blah, 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 blah. He's saying this in front of the Guardians while he's chained up with giant green chains. And he's like, okay, I said the oath. Can you let me be a Yellow Lantern again? And the Guardian's like, no, we can't do that. But instead, we're going to just say, go ahead and act like a Green Lantern and protect your sector, because this is a chance at redemption. So, go protect your sector, which is home to his home planet of Corrigar. So he goes off. The Guardians stay for a little chat. There's one Guardian who can feel more. His name is Ganthet. Ganthet comes up and he's like, why are we giving him a Green Lantern ring? He's so evil. And the Guardian's like, Ganthet, it's part of a plan, man. Calm down. He's like, no, this is stupid, and you're all stupid for doing it. And basically they get pissed off that Ganthet keeps on feeling things. So they zap him with some green mind lasers, and he screams, And then we just kind of leave that alone. We don't deal with that anymore. Cut 2 on Earth. A bunch of past due bill notices and Hal Jordan standing over them with his landlord right next to him saying, hey, I need rent for the past 3 months. Hal's like, I'll write you a check. He's like, no more checks. They keep bouncing. Cash now. He's like, okay, well, I don't really have the ability to do that, but I guess let's go to an ATM. As they're about to leave, he looks out the window and he sees across the street in an opposite window is a woman being attacked by a big brutish man, and Hal immediately throws the table aside, leaps out his own balcony, across the street, into the next window, and he goes to beat the guy up. He says, leave her alone. But it turns out this was a film shoot, and Hal just didn't see the cameras. He's like, damn. Got to, he's in jail. Carol Ferris, an old flame of his, a girlfriend, and also a Star Sapphire, which is another one of the Lantern Corps, as we come back to later, bails him out. She also runs an airfield, Ferris Air, where Hal Jordan was a pilot at, or I guess maybe still was. It's a bit confusing. Anyway, so he's trying to explain to the cops why he did what he did, but like, Carol's like, you're not Green Lantern anymore. I haven't even put on the Star Sapphire ring. Can we just be like normal people? He's like, sure, let me fly a plane again with you guys. And he's like, no, I can't insure the planes because you keep crashing them, Hal. I'm not letting you in you can work for the company, but you're not flying the planes. He's like, what would be the point in that? She's like, to have a job, Hal. God. So they just talk for a while, and Hal's like, I don't understand why Sinestro has a ring. And she's like, that's not your problem. You're not a Green Lantern anymore. I'm not Star Sapphire. Let's just live life as people. And he's like, all right, want to go out for dinner? Cut to Corrigar. It is currently enslaved by the Yellow Lanterns. Sinestro is keeping a watch over it from far away, but one of the Yellow Lanterns finds him, tells him how he's gonna skin him until he realizes that it's Sinestro, and he's like, dude, we've been waiting for you. What have you been? You're a Green Lantern? And he's like, why have you enslaved my planet? I told you to protect it, you dumbass. And the Yellow Lantern's like, hey, Arkillo, who I guess is a Yellow Lantern who's taken the place of leader in the meantime. He tries calling him up, telling him how Sinestro has abandoned the Corps. Sinestro pulls out, like, literally just Green Lantern piano wire, chokes out this Yellow Lantern, tells him that he betrayed nothing, and then kills the Yellow Lantern. The ring starts to fly away to find a new host, but Sinestro just blows it up. And then, he looks down at Corrigar and sees how it looks like there's some yellow sparks, so odds are a couple people are coming up to attack him. Meanwhile, cut to a restaurant. Hal and Carol are having dinner, and Hal's like, hey, listen, I've been thinking a lot about what you've said to me, and I have a very important question for you, Carol. Something I never thought I'd be asking you. Will you sign the lease on my car? Carol obviously thought that conversation was going a different way. She throws water in his face and storms out. She goes to the parking lot. Hal's like, I'm sorry, I really need someone to co-sign the lease. Wait, did you think I was going to propose to you? And she's like, yeah, like flames do. People who are in love do. But you've been off planet so long, you're out of touch with people. She drives away, and Hal's like, wait, you're my ride. Literally, that's a quote. Like, wait, you drove me. He walks back home in the rain. He finds an eviction notice on his door, and showing up next to him is Sinestro, who says, if you want your ring back, you'll do everything I say. End of issue. I like it. I think it's good. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know what happened before. I didn't read it. So this isn't really a great jumping on point. It's a good issue. I really like all the Sinestro stuff because he's not messing around with anything. The art is almost all good. I have a serious issue with the face that's drawn when Hal asks Carol out to dinner. Oh, it's going to haunt my dreams. Oh God, but everything else, it looks fine. It's great. I'll just straight up say it's good art. And I like the story being told. It's a nice, slower pace. It doesn't worry about setting up too much right now. It's okay. Sinestro's a Green Lantern. Hal's down on his luck. His relationship isn't exactly working out. And now Sinestro is saying, hey, I'm willing to give you back a ring. Nice, decompressed. It's willing to tell a long story. I'm good with that. I'm totally fine with that. So overall, I'm going to give this an 8. I think it's good. I'd say check it out. But we have a lot of stuff before this that we're never going to cover, and a lot of stuff after this that we'll eventually get to. So, hey, catch up on Geoff Johns' Green Lantern soon. Red Lanterns #1, written by Peter Milligan, art by Ed Benz? I don't know. This is part of the Green Lantern line, and it is strictly focused on not the Green Lanterns, but the Red Lanterns. Green Lanterns are willpower-based, Yellow Lanterns are fear-power-based, Red Lanterns are rage-based. We'll get into more of their specific powers in a minute, but this opens up with a ship moving through space, big blue lizard-looking aliens just torturing some other alien, talking about pulling out his eyes. He's already missing some legs and stuff, and they're just trying to feel something, you know, like any normal Saturday night. Specifically, though, they're moving through space sector 666. So, you know, bad. Anyway, so apparently something is approaching their ship, some funny-looking creature, and they're like, all right, bring it in. We'll tear it apart. And who is it but the best kitty, Deathstroke? Deathstroke is a Red Lantern who's a cat. Just a normal cat. And the cat flies in. They're like, oh, hold it down. I want the fur. And then it just starts tearing apart all of these aliens due to them being sadists. And it heard the screams of its victims. And it just slashes throats and claws out eyes. And another thing Red Lanterns have is that their blood is replaced with napalm or some napalm-like thing, so they can just spew out this burning liquid onto its foes at any time. Finally, they get some weapons on Deathstroke, start shocking it, start talking about removing its teeth and its claws, and then a bigger explosion. They say they've been hit, when in actuality it is Atrocitus, the big red dude on the cover. And he comes in, I love this quote, "What are you doing to my cat?" I love it. Probably more menacing, but you know, whatever. He comes in, he tears up the rest of them, but he comments how it's just going by the numbers. Like, he feels rage, but it's not special anymore. He lost the spark of undying rage. So, you know, he's wondering what's up. Cut to Earth. A dude is being mugged. It's an older guy. He's being mugged by a dude with a brick. Old guy throws a punch. Brick dude throws a brick. And all the while, Atrocitus is commenting so much injustice, so much rage and pain in the universe. He brings Deathstroke back to the Red Lantern planet of Yzmalt. He tells Deathstroke to heal. All the Red Lanterns are just fighting with each other, and they are completely like mindless. They just barely can string together a sentence, except for Atrocitus and also Deathstroke. The one that we get most introduced to, I believe her name is Bleeze. She's on the front cover here, the angel-looking woman. Again, still can barely string together a thought, but she exists. She manages to sputter out the word think, and Atrocitus is like, I didn't ask you to think, I need you to obey my orders. And she's like, oh, okay, and walks away. Basically, he's feeling that his Red Lanterns don't fear him anymore. And then we get the history of the Red Lanterns. So, back during the Green Lanterns, before there were Green Lanterns, the Guardians of the Universe, who are like the Green Lanterns cops, created a thing called the Manhunters, who are robots and were basically just designed to be police forces of the universe. But one mad Guardian named Krona turned all the Manhunters evil, though they were kind of evil to begin with, and as such they slaughtered Atrocitus' entire sector, aka his planet, and all of his people. He was the lone survivor. on Yzmalt, they have Krona's corpse, and he talks about, in many ways, we are like lovers. I am married to you in my rage. Married for all time, you slaughtered my people. And then he talks about how Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, I'm assuming during some point of Geoff Johns' run, took out Krona and denied Atrocitus his vengeance. Then we get personally his history of he was he had a wife and a daughter, and he, quote, trained to be a psychologist. I wanted to help people. So, you know, just imagine sitting down and sharing your feelings with Atrocitus here. But back then his name was Atros, so he was actually, you know, nice. The Manhunters killed everybody except for him, and everything turned to dust in his hand except for his rage. Cut to a while later, kids showing up in a hospital room on Earth. The old man who was beaten up on the one page, he's in the hospital, but he just passed away before this guy came. He's the grandson of the grandfather. The grandson is named Jack. He has a brother who's already there named Ray. Tells him that he's just missed him. Jack feels awful, but he's just like, oh, who could do something like this? And Ray's like, dude, everything sucks all the time. And meanwhile, you're off getting your doctorate. And he's like, well, why would bad thing? We can't do anything. And Ray's like, yeah, we can. We gotta fight back. We gotta do something. Like, man up. And he throws a punch at Jack. And I guess that kind of reverberates across the universe in some way. Atrocitus is like, huh, okay, something's up. He plunges his hand into Krona, pulls out blood, which isn't supposed to happen. They also have an ability to make something called blood prophecies. I'm not 100% on it, but I guess they can see the future through blood. He offers up Kronos blood, and he can see all the pain and suffering across the entire universe. So much brutality, and so many people who want vengeance, and so many people who need to be punished. And in that moment, Atrocitus realizes that it's not his rage that he's fighting for. He carries, as the Red Lantern leader, the rage of the entire universe, and he's out to avenge it. So that's his goal now. That's the goal. That's why Red Lanterns have a book, because they're out to be instruments of vengeance on anyone who's brutal in the universe. So he's like, all right, so I kind of need people to help me. I hope my people aren't, you know, planning a coup against me because they see me as weak. And the last page is that. So yeah, that's and it's Bleez who's leading the, saying that he Atrocitus wanes is the thing. So yeah. Anyway, they're planning a coup, and Atrocitus is setting up a new direction for the Red Lanterns. I like it. I like it a lot. I've always been... Red Lanterns I actually picked up before I even bought Green Lanterns. I was always interested in their concept, because, like, how do you turn that into a book? Like, just rage. I don't know. It seemed interesting to me. And it was. I liked... The art style is very good. It's got a very well-defined texture to it. They do a good job at showing the rage. I will never, ever turn down a 2-page spread of Dexstar. Are you kidding me? I love him. He's the best kitty. Anyway, no, I like this one. I'm not going to say it's for everybody, because, you know, this is pretty much as edgy as it gets. Like, we're going to get vengeance through blood and violence. Like, I get it, but I kind of like it. I can't help that. So, no, overall, I'm going to give this 7.5. It's good. I want to see where it goes. I'm not so fond of the human part, because, like, how do you match the rage of losing your entire people before your eyes while all the, like, the people who did it are viewed as the good guys in the universe? I feel like Jack or Ray, whoever it's going to be, is not exactly going to be a great fit. But who knows? We'll see how they write it. Right now, though, it's just Atrocitus and dealing with the Red Lantern. So I'm down for that, and I want to see where it goes. Mr. Terrific #1, written by Eric Wallace, art by Gianluca Gugliotta. I'm good with names. um, Miss Terrific, of course, is a character that doesn't really get a lot of spotlight time, but hey, at one point at least he had his own book. So he is a smart guy. That's his thing. He's super smart. How smart? He is the third smartest man in the world, as they say repeatedly throughout this book. So he makes science gadgets and gizmos and whatnots. How many science gizmos and gadgets and whatnot? Well, enough to make him definitely the first smartest person in the world, but hey, we'll get to that. So it opens up. He's in London. He's running from something, some lasers, and then next page he's being blown out via some cannon through a wall while some dude okay, this moves really fast. This is like really dense for no particular reason. He was investigating the CEO of some place for like making some Iron Man armor essentially. And the dude put on the Iron Man armor and is now trying to blast him. And he's like, now I finally get to test out this suit. So he's like flying through London by running on these little floating spheres called T-spheres. And they like, I don't know, they just constantly are like in front of him, or he's using the same ones and they're just floating. It's not drawn particularly clearly. Flies over some crowd, they're all remarking at him. He gets to the London Eye, the Ferris wheel, and he magnetizes the guy's suit to stick to the wheel as he punches him out. Then he's like, but it wasn't always this way. Let me tell you my origin. And he was super smart. He had, let me list off here, Olympic gold medal, more degrees than half the faculties of Harvard and Yale combined, and a net worth of over $1 billion. But it was nothing compared to her. That's right, the love of his life. Alika was her name. She was pregnant with their child, but then she died in a car accident, and both her and the kid died. He threw himself into science, and when he was at the end of his rope and couldn't go on anymore, was about to kill himself. One of his experiments caused like some time rift or something like that, and a dude showed up and said, "Hey, I got a message for you, Michael Holt. Don't give up." And he's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm your son from the future." And then he disappeared again. Basically telling him, keep educating people. Keep making the world smarter. His, I can't remember his wife or girlfriend. Wife. His wife said that when she died. He said that before he disappeared. So he's taking it to heart and he's educating the world. He's telling all this to some woman. I don't know the relation. I guess just friends. Her name's Karen. She just asks if he ever saw him again. He says no, he hasn't. And then he asks her to join him for some fundraising dinner for a senator. Cut 2, downtown Los Angeles. Dude's eating a bowl of soup, and then there's a flash in his eyes. And he just starts insulting everybody in, quote, highly intelligent ways. Like, he says his mind is racing, so many thoughts. And then he just tears down this waitress, saying how like, you probably moved out here to be an actress, but then you realize you had no talent, so now you work here. You'd be better off in the streets. You don't look half bad compared to the other. It's like it's written with big words to make it sound highly intelligent, but it's just him being a dick. So he then passes by a homeless man, insults him the same way. Homeless man comes at him with a bat. He just turns around, snaps his neck, and say, "All right, problem solved," and continues on. Police know who he is. He's not like hiding his identity. They call in Michael Holt as like a consultant. Sorry, not Michael Holt, Mr. Terrific. Call him as a consultant, and they're like, he on his napkin he scribbled down all these things. What are they? He's like, these are differential equations. They're so hard to make Hawkins' head spin. I'm gonna need to consider how he could have suddenly just become a super genius. So he goes off into his own inner sanctum, which is apparently a fortress that he built, quote, at fixed coordinates within the 9th dimension. See, this is the stuff that makes me think first smartest person in the world, not third. If you can build a portal to your own place in the 9th dimension, but whatever. He's thinking about it, and he can't figure out any reasons as to why this guy would like suddenly become smart because that doesn't make any physical sense. So now he's dealing with a little bit of, okay, well, what could cause it? Because obviously it is happening. He's not just dismissing it as not happening. So he's following the science. Then we cut to the fundraiser, which is at his own branch of a nonprofit foundation, which saves the planet because, of course, it does. There's a kid there named Jamal who has an IQ of 192, and his, I think, mom, they don't really make that clear, is telling him that he can't have any champagne. Michael Holt is talking to the senator, saying like, "Oh, you spoke out against your party for pushing back science funding or whatever, so you have my support because that's the most important thing." Blah blah blah. There's this whole page here of Karen and Jamal's mom or whatever, like getting at each other, where Karen's like, "No, we're just friends. Like, you don't have to worry about me." And it's like, oh well, it devolves into a race thing rather quickly. And then, like, into a rich versus, like, not rich thing? I don't know. I don't really get the point of this scene, and I'm not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Suddenly, he's cut down to Michael Holt is explaining this dampener for earthquakes that he installed. It's this large crystal that can... because they live in LA, there's earthquakes. And he's like, we've got a lot of sensitive equipment here. We need something to dampen it. But then Michael starts being able to hear this noise that no one else can hear, and it turns him into the same hyper-intelligent dillweed that the other guy was. And he starts insulting this senator, saying, like, with your political clout and all of your ability to gather support, there's no doubt you're going to be president, but you're not fit to lead the free world. So he clicks some buttons, and the dampening crystal then starts causing an earthquake that is... you flip the last page and it's just, oh, now I'm going to kill you, Senator, because whatever the hell's happening. I'm not sure how I feel about this yet. It's dense. It's very dense. I didn't expect it to take as long to read as it did. They use a lot of big words, like when he's describing all the stuff in the ninth dimension, and he's describing like how this stuff could happen to this guy. Everyone's just big words to make them all sound smart. And don't get me wrong, it does. It does make them sound smart. But, like, it's just so dense. And I'm just like, yes, I get it. They're smart. Actions speak louder than words, guys. Can we, like, show me why he's smart? Like, you showed me this crystal that helps dampen the thing. Good. That's enough. You don't have to get into this whole, like, the nitty-gritty fine details of it. I can't remember who said it, but the best way to show your intelligence is how easy you're able to relay complicated ideas to someone who otherwise wouldn't get it. You're using big words, which makes it harder for me to understand what it is you're going for. If you can explain it simply, that makes you sound more intelligent. I digress, though. Art-wise, it's good. It's some solid art. There's a little bit of facial weirdness on a couple people. But for the most part, it's just more of a stylized sort of thing, not so much of an art, like, hiccup. So yeah, art I wouldn't give a problem to. It's all good. One more thing for writing, though, and again, it comes down to, like, that one page that I didn't really want to touch. When he's going through the London, it's a 2-page spread. Dear Lord. There's one panel here where it's literally just, like, I would not be surprised if there was a chimney sweep, like straight up Mary Poppins style, just like, hello, what's all this then? Like all of it. Looks like a space biker riding 3 snooker balls. He's got a nice bum. It's like, dude, I get it. They're from London. I get it. You can just... Why do we have to specifically use the slang here? You can't escape me that way, Yank. Stop. Why are you calling them Yanks? Like, what? Stop. Writing, I think, is kind of low, all things considered. Art-wise, it's average. So, overall, it's going to come out to be a little bit below average. I'm gonna actually give this, like, a 5. It's iffy right now. I really like Mr. Terrific as a character because of later series that came out, like when I started collecting single issues, Rebirth, stuff. Mr. Terrific's a good character. This particular incarnation, though, I'm not a fan of yet. Hopefully he can turn it around. But, yeah, we'll see how that goes. Deathstroke #1, written by Kyle Higgins, art by Joe Bennett. I mean, it's Deathstroke. I don't really feel like I gotta explain it. He's a mercenary. I don't want to say anti-hero, because he's just a mercenary, but, sometimes villains need a book too. So, this particular book opens up in Moscow, and right off the bat, it set a poor tone, but it pulls it back, at least for me. It opens up with stroking Deathstroke's ego so hard. The narration, quote, Deathstroke the Terminator, the scariest badass on the planet. Okay, sure, whatever. Anyway, he's apparently going after some Russian mafia or Russian mob or something like that. He has like 12 guys on his side, whereas Deathstroke's just him and a bunch of swords. And Russian mob's like, oh, well, I feel like I have numbers on my side, huh? And Deathstroke's like, nah. And then he just goes through and kills all of them. And again, the narration, quote, a major badass. And then it just says, all right, everyone knows how badass he is, but he's a mercenary, he does it for money. So even then, you can just hire him as a bodyguard just to, really scare people off from doing anything. And then it's revealed that all of this was basically a sales pitch from Deathstroke's, I guess, job finder, like the guy who arranges the jobs for him. His name is Christoph. So he's like, oh, and because all that is true, and because, believe me when I say that this is a good deal. And he's like, dude, save the pitch. What do you want? And he's like, it's an assassination and a recovery. And apparently it's supposed to be impossible, and they're going to have to put together a team for this one because it's so crazy hard. Deathstroke's like, I don't really do teams. And he's like, oh, trust me, if you're not interested, then if you don't think you can cut it, then, I'm sure the team could do it themselves. And he kills a fly with a paperclip just to prove how badass he is. And he's like, all right, well, I hope this is worth my time. Cut to later. It's a team of teenagers. It's 3 teenagers, April, Hughes, and Quinn, who do communications, transport, weapons, ammo, sharpshooting, blah, blah, blah. Your general backup guys. They're just sitting around, drinking some coffee, waiting for their 4th member. Deathstroke shows up, and they're like, hey, we're the Alpha Dogs. Dog spelled D-A-W-G. Yes, it's supposed to be stupid. Literally the next panelist, see, I told you the name sucked. And then the other guy's like, right, because Harmory was so much better. So they're all bickering. They're trying to... Deathstroke just wants to know what the job's about. They meet up with Christoph, and Christoph's like, all right, the dude's name is Jeffrey Bode. He's a former German scientist. He deals arms now. He's going to be delivering nuclear secrets to Iran. We need to literally assassinate him on his plane in international waters. We can't allow his plane to land. And that's it. That's all we got to do. And they're like, yep, that's it. So they get up in the air. The one girl's like, hey, Deathstroke makes a plan. He's the one who tells everybody where it's going to be. And then they get up in the air. The one girl is like, hey, I don't know how far your meta-humanness, stamina goes, so I gave you an air tank. And he's like, I don't need it. And also, gave him a bunch of guns. And he's like, I don't need it. And he just took his swords in. And he dove down onto the plane, grabbed on with the sword, cut his way in, and then when they get in, turns out they got bad information because the dude isn't dealing nuclear secrets, he's dealing genetics. He has multiple clones made out of clay-faced DNA, which apparently makes them harder to kill. But not impossible, because he goes ahead and chops off their heads and throws them out of the plane. In literally a 1-page fight sequence. It's not even a thing. It's just yeah, okay, that happened. He gets up to the dude he's supposed to be assassinating, steals his briefcase, and then the dude says oh, but I worked very hard to see you, Deathstroke. And he's like, well, whatever you're talking about, I don't care. But then they open up the briefcase, And we're not revealed what it is inside, but apparently Deathstroke thinks it might supposed to be a threat. To which the other guy says, no, Deathstroke, it's a message. And then he's like, cool, message received. And he puts some C4 on the door and gets his way out back into the plane. So everyone's back celebrating a job well done. They're like, yeah, we got the nuclear secrets and we got the guy dead. We did our job. And the alpha dogs are like, hey, Deathstroke, what do you think? We're a pretty good team of up-and-comers, right? And he's like, no, there's no such thing as up-and-comers. There's competition. And then he slaughters them all. And Kristoff's like, dude, they were teenagers. What are you doing? And he's like, you think I needed a team for that? Are you insane? And he shows him what's inside the briefcase. And Kristoff's like, I didn't know, man. We still don't know what's inside. Kristoff's like, I didn't know. Deathstroke's like, hey, this bodyguard work you're having me do is causing an image problem. So you get me a high-profile thing now. Kristoff's like, nobody thinks you can cut it. That you're all washed up. And he's like, well, then you better sort that out, man. Also clean up this mess. And that's where we leave the issue, is him walking away saying, be a good dog, clean up the mess. I like it. I think it's a good setup issue. It sets up just the barest plot in that Deathstroke has an image problem and he needs bigger, badder jobs to get it back. And someone tried to send him a message. Those are just small enough beats that he could fit the rest of the exposition in there. Which he did. I think the opening part of it just being a ego-sucking, like, he's a total bad. 5 guys or 55. It doesn't seem to matter. Like, okay, I get it. Art-wise, it's fine. It's good. I didn't have any problem, like, following the action or anything like that. And everything, for the tone of the book, it's all dark. Like, the inker went pretty crazy on it, which is fair. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have. It fits the tone. So I have no complaints on the art. Writing-wise, I think it did a very capable job. It explained who Deathstroke is, even if I didn't particularly like the way they did it. And it set up what the future arc is going to be, an image recovery thing, and also whatever was in the briefcase. I'm down with that. It's a good setup. I'm going to give this a 7.5. It's pretty good. I'm not sure just how much I care about Deathstroke in general because, like, he doesn't care. Like, all he cares about is his image, which can be good, but, like, there's only so long I can take the whole whatever, like, attitude. So we'll see how it goes. Overall, like I said, 7.5. It's fine. It's a good pickup for now. We'll see how it turns out in future issues. Grifter, number 1, written by Nathan Edmonson, art by Cafu. I'm assuming that's a trade name, but Cafu doing the art. This is a Wildstorm book, something from the Wildstorm universe that just got folded into the DCU. As such, it's totally new characterization. Like, this is. I'm assuming he has a very long and very detailed history in the Wildstorm universe, but I know nothing about that, and I'm not intending to learn. So this is the first, by my measure, that this man has ever existed. And we are introduced to, they don't give his name at first, but his name is Cole Cash. And, I'll just give the story. He's on a plane. He's on a plane, and he's kind of freaking out a little bit. He's hearing voices. Quick little aside, he knocks over drink of Mr. Harris. And for anyone who didn't know, the editor-in-chief of DC Comics at this time was Bob Harris. So I'm sure that was a little in-joke. I'm sure they're very proud of that. And I'm pointing it out for you because I had to read it too. Anyway, flight takes off, and he's hearing voices in his head, and he cannot escape them. They say they're only growing louder. Lady checks in. He's like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. I just... And then the voices start saying that they're going to kill him before he finds out too much. So he starts really freaking out. And, you're on a plane freaking out. People are a little bit like, okay, sir, calm down, sit down, shut up. But they're saying how he's calling attention to them, whoever they are. We see the woman who was actually concerned about him, or at least feigning concern, pulls some, like, needle-looking attack weapon from her skin in her wrist. And as he's looking around trying to figure out where the voices come from, she attacks him, but he manages to essentially get the weapon away from her and jam it into her own eye. So then, he just killed what seemed to be innocent enough woman on a plane after freaking out about voices. So what's the next reasonable thing that Cole Cash should do? Well, he threatens to blow everybody on the plane up. Yeah, he he holds someone hostage, tells one of the airplane people to open up the emergency exit door so he can jump out over the water before it gets too high up. And then as he does so, one of the voices says perfect, I will kill him before he jumps for the water. And he's like, wait, who said? And then he gets tackled out the door. And flashback to quote earlier, he's having a meeting with someone about whether or not this is the right amount of money for their deal. The guy gets in the car and is talking to his driver saying yeah, Cole Cash doesn't know, but all those bills were counterfeit. So then Cole's like, cool, no problem. So he takes the money, he just throws it away. He walks out with a briefcase. Dude checks his briefcase in the car, makes sure he got what he wanted. He didn't. Turns out Cole switched briefcases, and the briefcase full of money is now in Cole's possession. So then he calls up his girlfriend who's at the airport and she's like, you got the money? And he's like, yep, I'm going to be on the plane right behind you. So you go ahead and head out for San Juan. And as he's saying this, he's abducted by this blue, demonic-looking alien thing that speaks in the same speech bubbles that we saw the voices in his head. He wakes up. He's tied down to a table. He sees the alien. He immediately breaks out of his straps and starts running for it. Apparently a transfer was interrupted according to the voices in his head. So he runs out the door. He comes across someone. I don't think we actually know who. It's just someone who's like, you're awake? That's not possible. And then this guy is beaten to death by Cole. Just with a giant steel pipe, he is beaten to death by Cole. And Cole's like, oh God, I've murdered someone. I need to wipe this off. So he goes to a corner shop and he steals a rag and a hat. And he he keeps hearing the voices saying you gotta find him. Find him. Don't let him say anything. Blah, blah, blah. He makes it to the airport. The whole time freaking out. Whole airport scene. Cliff Notes version plays again. Him and the guy that tackled him out the door both crash into the water. It says 2 hours later, he's back on shore. He calls up his girlfriend. And he's like, hey, so crazy thing happened to me. And the girlfriend's like, I don't want to hear it. You were gone for 17 days. I'm not... We're through. And also, there's all this stuff on the news of somebody committing a terrorist act who looks exactly like you. Yeah, I'm not dealing with that at all. See you later, Cole. And then we see on the news, wanted man, and then it lists all of his stuff, and then it says traveling under the name Christopher Argent, which I guess that might be a thing. I don't know. So then we see a couple of news broadcasts, and then it cuts to the Pentagon, where we're seen to be watching the news broadcast, and he's like, so Cole Cash, he's been a grifter for the past decade. He used to be military, but now he's a terrorist. So I need you to go and get him. Do you understand that? Max Cash, a.k.a. brother of Cole Cash. And Max is like, yes, sir, I understand. I will not put my brother over the country as a whole. I really feel like this is a conflict of interest, but, whatever. So then he has his word, and they're going to get a team and take down Cole Cash. Cut to a New Orleans cemetery. Cole's trying to figure out what's going on. He's hearing all the voices in his head still and saying how he find him. You need to correct the mistake, blah, blah, blah. And Cole takes this bloody rag and he ties it like a bandana, but over his whole face, a la The Mask. And he says, well, just come and try to find me. And that's how we end the issue. The beats of the issue are fine. It tells the story that it wants to tell. I have no problem with that. My problem is I feel like it's doing a bit too much in issue 1. It's just it's too much. It's setting up, it's going through this entire thing of, okay, he's a grifter. Got that. Understandable. He was taken, and then he got powers, and now not only is the military looking for him, but also he's a wanted terrorist, and these alien things are after him. There's a lot going on. I honestly think that they could have probably stretched out all the way to like him waking up being the end issue, like cliffhanger. I don't think we needed all of this other stuff, but hey, I'm not the writer, so whatever. It was a lot to fit in. It felt a bit bad. Art wise, I don't really have a problem with it. Everyone looks pretty good. Everything feels pretty fine. The only thing that's weird, and this is just a character design thing, they gave Cole some crazy mutton chops. Like, maybe it's supposed to be a beard, but it doesn't seem like it connects in the middle, and it's just crazy mutton chops. It's just a bit distracting sometimes. Overall, it's fine. It's nothing to write home about. I'm going to give this like a 7. I'm interested to see where it goes, but at the same time, if it really wants to blow me away, it needs to do something a little bit better than what's currently going on. But I'm sure they'll get there, so we'll see what happens next issue. Suicide Squad number 1, written by Adam Glass, art by primarily Federico Dallocchio, but also Ronsom, Getty, and Scott Hanna. This is your stereotypical first Suicide Squad issue. I don't even have to explain it. You know what that means, but I will, but you get it. You know what's happening. It's all exactly the same. Anyway, we open up Deadshot. Deadshot is our first person who is being tortured by this. I can't even tell. It looks like Scarecrow minions, but I know they're not because of later on. But they've got that aesthetic going on. They're like rats tearing his stomach apart, and there's a flaming branding done on him. I don't know. It's terrible. Zoom out. We see the entire Suicide Squad is all being tortured. We have Deadshot, Harley Quinn, King Shark, Hammerhead version of King Shark. I don't know if that makes a difference, but El Diablo, and then 3 other people. I think Black Spider, Voltaic, and I know they say his name later. Savant. That's it. Savant. I was just gonna call him the Dead Meat because we'll get to it. Anyway, so basically these people just want to know who sent them. Who sent the Suicide Squad after them? We open up with Deadshot's perspective. He's not cracking under the pressure of it, and then we get his backstory of why he's here. He apparently was given a assassination target of a senator in Gotham. Batman caused him to miss, and he got captured. So, yeah, that's his story. And he basically says he's not going to crack. Then we move over to El Diablo. Same exact thing happens. They beat him up a bit. They give him his backstory. He went to a house of people who stole from him as like a drug dealer or something. He had fire powers though, so I don't know why he wasn't on that. Anyway, they fire some shots at him. He burns the house down, but apparently they had like their girlfriends and their children, like the gang members had their girlfriends and children inside, and he killed them, innocents, so he turned himself in willingly. He's not breaking. Cut over to Harley Quinn. Harley was left by the Joker. Apparently he's not giving her any attention or something, or he's in jail. It's kind of, I wouldn't say secret, but kind of just, unsure of which one it is. But apparently Harley has been killing the lawyers who put him away so that he'll have to notice her. And she's sad. She's like crying over it. So, there's that. She's caught by Black Canary, by the way. That's it for the flashback stuff. Then we just get to the other ones. King Shark is under a heat lamp. They think that they killed him, so they pull off the heat lamp. They go to check on him, and then he was just messing with them, and he bites one of their arms off. Then we get to Savant, who cracks. He cracks under the pressure. There's like bugs crawling all over him. And he tells them exactly what it is. Task Force X, Suicide Squad. They were, all superpowered people who were locked in Belle Reve, this terrible, terrible prison. Then one day, they were knocked out of their cells. They were brought out, given bombs into their necks, and then they were put through a whole lot of training before they were finally given a target, a rogue agent they had to bring back dead or alive. They go to this cabin. Immediately, El Diablo's like, we can do this the easy way or the hard. And then Deadshot shoots him. He's like, okay, all right, we didn't have to kill him. Harley goes up, realizes that it was a mannequin that has a bomb strapped to it. And he's like, oh, we should get out of here. They escape the explosion because the bomb wasn't like... Someone says the bomb couldn't have been meant to kill us. I think that was Savant saying that, but I don't know how a bomb is not meant to kill you. Anyway, so he cracked, and then the guy's like, all right, cool. So I can go free now. And the guy's like, yeah, okay, he can go free. Drags him off in the darkness. You just hear screaming. All the other Suicide Squad members are like, you idiot. Everyone else gets knocked out, and they put the stereotypical burlap sacks over their heads and give them one last thing. He's like, all right, your guy gave up Suicide Squad. Your guy gave up Task Force X and Belle Reve. We just want to know, was it Amanda Waller? And they put the gun up to Deadshot's name. Deadshot's like, nope, I'm not going to tell you anything. El Diablo, not going to give him anything. Voltaic, electric power guy, I guess, not going to tell him anything. Every single person doesn't rat. And so then Amanda Waller gets over the intercom and says how they passed their final test. And I like Black Spider. He's like, hey, Waller, some of us need a doctor. And Waller just says, request denied, Black Spider. So they're like, okay, so now you're being deployed immediately. And they're like, you just killed one of our guys. We're being deployed. And they're like, yep, your first mission's in the Megadome in Mississippi. And they're like, cool, who are we killing? They're like, everybody there. You have to kill everybody in the stadium, 60,000 people, in 6 hours. And that's where the issue ends. Also, for anybody who knows anything about Amanda Waller, she is called The Wall because she is a very large woman. She has a presence to her. But as we see in the final reveal panel, Amanda Waller is very shapely in this. So one of the many things changed by the New 52 reboot, and we'll see how long that lasts for. Overall, this issue, it's exactly what I thought it was. Like I said, it's a Suicide Squad first issue. I did think it being all a training mission. I didn't directly see that coming. So they did manage to put at least a twist on it. They did straight up kill Savant, though. Like, he's dead. They said that out of 37 candidates, only these 6 were the ones who didn't break. So there was more off-panel of people who just straight up were killed because of it. So, hey, as for art, it's fine. It's a little basic at times. Like, nothing here's really jumping out of me is like, wow, look at that. It's just kind of, okay, it's got, thick lines. It looks almost a little mid-2000s, which, of course, when this was published wasn't that long ago, but I don't know, it doesn't feel that new. Writing, fine. I'm going to give this, I'm going to give it a 6.5. Like, it's fine. It's not blowing me out of the water. Most of that is for the twist at the end, and I want to see why they have to kill an entire stadium in Mississippi. Like, that's a good setup to an issue. But as for this issue, it's fine. 6.5. It's Suicide Squad, number 1. It's what you were always going to get. Legion Lost Issue 1, written by Fabian Nicieza, art by Pete Woods. I don't know Legion of Superheroes. I have no current knowledge of any of them. My knowledge goes to the point of they exist in the 31st century. They do time traveling stuff, occasionally with Superman when he was a younger man, and they have rings that let them fly. That's all I got. Maybe like 1 or 2 members, but I couldn't even tell you their powers. So to not this isn't even just Legion of Superheroes. This is like an offshoot of the Legion of Superheroes, Legion Lost. So going into this, I had a whole lot of nothing to go off of. But I'll let you be the judge as to whether or not. No, I'll judge it, but I'll let you hear it at least. Anyway, opens up. We're in a hospital. Some dude's getting thrown into a wall while this guy is just shouting, "Stay away from me. I shouldn't be here. Don't touch me, you filthy human scum." But he's saying it in a different language that they can't understand. So then the entire clinic just blows up. That's page 1. Page 2, apparently 29 hours either later or it just says 29 hours after release. And this is Red Lake Falls in Minnesota. The time portal opens up. The team Legion pops out. And they crash land. Their time bubble, which is how they travel through time, crashes and breaks, and everyone's a bit shaken up. We get a whole introduction of names here. I had to write them down separately just to remember them. And I don't even know if these are their names or their aliases or what. But there's Gates, who's like an animal dude who can open up portals. There's Tyrock, who seems to be like the leader and has harmonic control. Guy named Bryn and Orlando, bit confused by that one. He has like wolf senses or something like that. Guy named Drake, he's a ball of energy in a suit, so he has like energy abilities. Yara, she's chameleon girl, she can shapeshift. Dawnstar, she has wings, so I'm assuming she can fly. She also has heightened sensory something or another's. And Tellus, who's a big like rock monster looking dude. I don't know, maybe more like a fish with rocky patches. Anyway, he's telekinetic. And that's it. That's your team. I'm not bothering with the rest of them. Oh, and apparently the guy on the first page name was Alastor. So they crash land. They're like, hey, is everybody all right? Dawnstar's thrown up in the bushes. Everyone feels a little bit funny. They're talking about a pathogen that Alastor stole and is going to release in the past, and they're here to stop him. So immediately the wolf guy goes off and he's like, I'm going to find him myself because I'm a lone wolf. And then the rest of the team's like, all right, we'll go find him. Everyone just chill. Apparently their flight rings aren't working for some reason. So it's just the people who can fly on their own go out. They catch up with the wolf guy. Oh, the portal guy also disappeared. He finally shows back up again. They get everybody together. They sort out a plan. They try to figure out, okay, well, we'll use the tech stuff. Or maybe Dawnstar's heightened sensory abilities. And Wolf's like, I can do that. I literally have the ability to sniff them out on my own. That's my whole thing. So he runs off, leaving the rest of the team behind to figure out what to do about A, their broken ship, and B, finding the bad guy before the pathogen, whatever it is released. Cut to, in the city, a tanker truck is being thrown at police officers. A giant monster is screaming, I'll make you pay, in a language they can't understand, but we can as the privileged reader. Finally, after he's done crushing through a bunch of stuff, there's this little girl holding a teddy bear. And she's like, please, I need help finding my sister. And I guess she straight Cindy Lou Who's him and makes his heart grow, because then he shrinks down from monster form into his original human form. They found Alastor's time bubble, taken parts from it to repair their time bubble. Hopefully it's functional now so that they can get back home if need be. They think that the wolf guy's been out for too long. I want to use his real name. Bryn. Bryn's been out for too long. So Dawnstar, she gets over her sickness, flies up in the air, and it's like, shoot, we're too late. And apparently the pathogen's been released. I'm guessing that's what turned him big, but like they don't ever explicitly say that. So just the pathogen is out there. They think that if they take Alastor out of time as patient 0, it could greatly reduce the pathogen. So like they're just going to do that now instead of causing paradoxes by going further back in time. Bryn shows up. Apparently he got Alastor at some point. They throw him in the time bubble. Alastor starts losing his mind. I promised the human race they would pay for what they did. Blah, blah, blah. You get the gist of it. They go back towards the future, but something goes wrong. Apparently, quote, it's flying like a rock. Alistair's shouting like crazy, and then he starts transforming again, which is a problem because they're in a very limited space in the bubble, and he apparently can, like, kill them. The big guy, whose name is Tellus, is trying to hold him back with a telekinetic shield. Gates is trying to get the portal out of the bubble, and Chameleon Girl is just trying to fight him, like, to keep him down, when all of a sudden he just explodes, and the time bubble goes with it. Four of the people make it out: Tellus, Dawnstar, Bryn, and Tyrock all make it out, and Drake. And they're like, wait a minute, what about the teleporting animal guy and Chameleon Girl? And apparently they both died in the explosion. And they couldn't find a trace of Alistair anywhere. So they're like, okay, so we're trapped back in the past. There's a pathogen on the loose. We've lost our teammates and the villain we were chasing after. What do we do now? Oh, and we also might be infected ourselves. So what do we do now? And that's where the issue ends. I don't hate it. Like, it's not the worst thing. It's just really, really confusing. Because at one point, at the very beginning, and I just glanced right over this, the guy said, man, we should have been following Alistair a lot sooner. The longer we took, quote, the harder it would be to pierce the flashpoint break wall. So they're, like, in some way aware that a reboot has happened, and they went through time through the reboot. I don't understand what that means. I'm so confused, but anyway, art-wise, it's fine. The characters are different enough that, like, even if the art was crap, I could probably still tell them apart. But each character is very iconic. They got their own stuff. Layout's a bit boring, but whatever. I can't really complain about the art at all. It's fine for what it is. If anything, I would want it to be a little bit more over the top, but it's fine. As for the writing, I'm just confused. I'm sure the people who know all about the Legion of Superheroes get this, but, like, when it came to that first page of just explaining why did the bubble break, who are all the people, it felt so confusing without even being that dense. I can't rate it that highly because of it. It didn't help me out as a new reader. Maybe if the Legion of Superheroes proper had been introduced before we went to an offshoot team, I don't know, maybe that would have made it worse, but it just didn't help. So overall, I'm going to give this a 6.5 out of 10. It's not a bad book. It's perfectly fine. It's just confusing, and I'm sure that it's much better for actual Legion fans, but for someone who knows nothing about it, oh boy. Demon Knights, #1, written by Paul Cornell, art by Diogenes Neves. Not the easiest name, but this is your Middle Ages sword and sorcery, demons and magic book. And it's good. So, jumping right into it. We open up with the fall of Camelot. It is 4 centuries ago from the Dark Ages. So, like, the year 1000-ish. Everything's on fire. There's a knight running, telling everyone to flee for their lives. And he makes it to the coast and sees that Arthur, pretty much dead, is being hauled off to Avalon so that one day he may return. The knight has Excalibur. And the people on the boat are like, you have Excalibur and you have your orders. Just chill. And the knight immediately just throws the sword out into the lake or the ocean or whatever. And it starts to, a hand grabs it, and then it starts to sink down. Woman on the boat sees that and says, if he doesn't want it, I'll take it. And jumps in to go grab it. And I don't think she's successful because a big pink light shows up, and then she starts screaming underwater, but then that's the end of that scene. Then we cut to Merlin, who is, I'm assuming, in Camelot, as it's on fire. And he's like, oh, geez, this isn't good. What am I supposed to do with you, demon that I've kept here against his will? And demon's like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you thought that was a fantastic idea, keeping a demon against his will. And at that moment, a little squire boy named Jason comes in. It's like, Merlin, they're at the door, man. You got to go. And Merlin's just like, oh, hey, exactly who I wanted. And he casts a magic spell and fuses the demon into Jason and then just leaves. He says that this rise and fall has happened many times, humanity's woe and its common theme. Camelot is what was lost, until the wheel turns, just a dream. So I guess he's the rhyming one here. And then Jason screams no. So he has a demon inside him now. Cut to, I assume, 400 years later. Now we're at the Dark Ages. So this isn't actual Dark Ages because the page that they introduced this to us on there are very clearly dragons and dinosaurs and giant lizard beasts and birds and yeah, it's your magic Dark Ages. But we're in the horde of the questing queen that marches north. We see this questing queen and her husband, son, brother, I don't know. It's pretty unclear, but someone who shares the throne named Mordru. There's a guy who's from the local village who was like, hey, here, you wanted the youngest person in our village. This is my own newborn son. Please don't attack our village. And they're like, yeah, no, okay, we won't. And Mordru casts a spell on it, which I guess turns it into a satanic prophecy machine. And Mordru asks, like, hey, are we on the right path? And the baby's like, yes, and then explodes. So they look at their map and say, cool, so we're heading to Alba Sarum, which I guess is important because it's in the biggest, boldest, nicest looking font. And then right beneath it, where they have to pass through in order to get there is called Little Spring. Cut to Little Spring, where wouldn't you know it, Jason, who's now going by Jason O' the Blood, Jason Blood, he's Jason Blood. If I ever say Jason Blood, it's Jason Blood. And then Xanadu, who are now immortals. Both their things have made them immortal. They arrive into town, and the first person they come across is this hulking behemoth of a man with a giant battle axe who's trying to get into an inn, but the dude says it's closed, so he just busts through the door and takes a seat. His name is Vandal Savage, who, for anyone who knows DC Comics, is also an immortal. Typically one that's not this brawn over brains. It's the best way I can say it. So they're having a pint. They're talking about their immortality, how they were at the fall of Camelot. And then some dude chimes up. His name is Sir Yiston. They're all a little bit skeptical that it's a Sir, but I'm not touching that one yet. So Sir Yiston it is until presented otherwise. He's known as the Shining Knight. He's dressed head to toe in gold. And he's like, no, I was there. You guys, you're his exact thing is Saxon Dungwits, but he's saying that in a different language that they can't understand. So then there's this foreign guy. They literally just say foreign guy at the bar. His name is Al Jabir. He has mechanisms that can make people rich, I guess. And the bartender is refusing to serve him. So this other lady shows up named Exoristos and says like, oh, you don't serve foreign people? Well, I'm foreign, and my culture, we cut off man's manliness, and we call that a day. So you're going to serve me and my friend here? And she's like, yeah, okay, we'll serve you. Cut to a field. A bunch of people are picking on a poor little friar. They start getting impaled by bows from across the hill. The friar rejoices and it's like, oh, you, whoever you are, please tell news to the village that the horde approaches. And then cut to the horde busting in through the inn door. Immediately, Vandal Savage gets up to fight. Jason Blood's like, oh, it's morphin time. And Xanadu's like, dude, you don't have to morph. You can do this. He's like, nope, here we go. And he recounts a poem that turns him into Etrigan the demon. And Etrigan shows up. And he's like, hey, what's going on? Why was I summoned? And Xanadu's like, dumbass summoned you because he can't fight his own battles. And apparently Etrigan and Xanadu are a thing. And Xanadu is just playing Jason so that he'll keep on letting Etrigan out to play. Okay, alright, that's a thing. So anyway, they start fighting. You got Hellfire and stuff like that going on. Apparently they have instantaneous stuff back at the what was it, Questing Queen? Whatever the hell her name was. tells them that their men were attacked by magical forces. So then they cast their own thing to make magic of their own. And then the final splash page is giant dragons are bursting in through the walls of the inn and just killing everybody. Like, they have swords. There are dragons, and then there are giant lizards that are holding swords and have armor. And they're popping in through literal black holes. I like it. It's funny. It has it. From what I listed, it's not that funny sounding, but it does have a few moments of goodness here. I really like Vandal Savage. The entire inn scene before they get to the fight itself, very well done. It's a good book. It's a good book, and the art is just fantastic. It gets a little bit confusing at times as to like what's going on, but that might just be because it's magic. So why should they have to explain? Overall, I'm going to give this an 8. I think it's really, really good. I'm looking forward to see where it goes from here. Good luck getting your hands on this trade in print, though, because this one took me 3 years to get. So go digital or go broke. Your choice. Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E. #1, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Alberto Ponticelli. Not what I expected. Not bad, not great, but definitely not what I expected. For those of you who don't know, Frankenstein, not created by DC, is actually in the public domain. You can do whatever you want with Frankenstein, so long as you're taking strictly from the source material and not some other person's interpretation of it. So I guess DC saw Frankenstein and said, okay, we're going to make him a government agent that hunts monsters because we don't own the rights to Hellboy. Thus, Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E. So, just right off the bat, it opens up with grandfather and his grandson in Bone Lake, Washington. They're just sitting by the lake, fishing, saying, "Oh, Grandpa, I love hanging out with you." The dog's nearby. The dog starts growling at something, and then you hear this giant noise. The exact word is "grorsploch." So, whatever you think makes that noise. Grandpa thinks it might be a grizzly bear. So he tells the boy to stay back, goes off into the bushes, sees that the dog has literally been skinned. Then he looks up and he sees these giant hulking behemoths with like slime and stuff coming out of them. And he makes the offhand message here of, "It's finally happening, isn't it?" Don't get any payoff on that. Cut to S.H.A.D.E. What is S.H.A.D.E? It stands for the Superhuman Advanced Defense Executive. I'm not sure, that seems forced to me, but don't they all? We get a whole thing here on their new base of operations called the Ant Farm. And just as an aside real quick, the way they give exposition is via like a database like entry. So when Frankenstein, he has to sign in and they say like, "Welcome, Super Agent Frankenstein. Please enter your password. Password accepted. Thank you. Welcome to S.H.A.D.E.net. The blah, blah, blah." It's like, data incoming, 97% download. Like, it has the whole shebang on accessing files, which, fine if you have to exposit, but at the same point, it gets kind of annoying. Anyway, get the whole thing. Apparently, the Ant Farm is what the HQ is called. It's a 3-inch indestructible globe that they have to use shrinking and teleporting technology to get into. As such, Frankenstein is teleported in. A new science agent, Belroy, welcomes him. He tells Belroy that he was not to be interrupted from his vacation on Mars unless it was super important. So that can only relate to his wife, I guess. Also, his boss's name is Father Time. I'm assuming the actual Father Time. As he leaves to go find Father Time, he comes across 2 robots, and we get a whole thing on what are humanids. Humanids are artificial life forms, blah, blah. Basically, they're super smart. They run the city because it's a whole city inside of this 3-inch globe. And when they only live for 24 hours, and then they decompose into energy for the city. Frankenstein's a bit pissed off that, they're making life, because he kind of has a thing about that. And he comes across Father Time and the person working with Father Time, who we'll get to in a second. Father Time has taken a new body. Apparently the old one rotted away, and now Father Time is a small schoolgirl with a mask on. You can see it on the cover, whichever way that is. Um, it's just to get over it. So, moving on. The other person that's working with is Ray Palmer, and those who are familiar in DC history, Ray Palmer is the Atom, famous for shrinking technology. That's what he used to create the ant farm. However, according to this, he may not be the Atom. He's a UN science liaison, who's basically the one that's the government lackey that keeps them all in check around here. Anyway, Frankenstein doesn't want any nonsense, wants to know where his wife is. They do a psychic uplink so that they can just show him videos in his brain. Okay. They show some satellite footage from what happened that day. Apparently, the kid got away, went to the sheriff, said, hey, my father was attacked by monsters. Grandfather was attacked by monsters. They laughed him off. They went out, they found his skinned body, and then they took it a bit more seriously as the monsters were literally destroying their town. S.H.A.D.E sent in the Bride of Frankenstein to clean up, and she did a perfectly good job until she lost contact right at midnight. So they're sending Frankenstein in because now they've made it personal. So they arrive at the city. They've managed to contain the monsters, but they're like, hey, you've got like a couple hours before we drop some nukes, so get to it. So Frankenstein's about to jump in, and he's like, whoa. Father Time is like, whoa. You think you're the only public domain monster? Au contraire. Introducing Division M, aka the Creature Commandos, which consists of Dr. Nina Mazursky, Fish Lady, Warren Griffith, Werewolf, Vincent Velcoro, Vampire, and Khalees, Mummy, and Medic. I don't know why they made him the Medic. Just because he has bandages on hand. But anyway, Frankenstein's super pissed at this because it's like, stop making monsters. For God's sakes, stop making monsters. Stop it. I should be the only one. And the Fish Lady steps forward and is like, hey, hi, I was the lead scientist. You inspired me, Frankenstein. You are an inspiration to us all. And we all volunteered for this, so don't get too busy. And Frankenstein's like, whatever. Look, we're looking for survivors, we're looking to kill these monsters, and we're looking for my wife. Any questions? No? Cool. And they run in, there's a beautiful splash page of them all fighting. They're fighting for a little bit. They don't think anybody could have survived. Khalees, the mummy, feels heartbeats. Khalees was not made by the lady, the fish lady. He was just found. He is an actual ancient mummy. He feels heartbeats behind a church door. Frankenstein, Fish Lady, and Mummy make their way in while the other ones hold off the horde. And they get in there. It seems empty. They push the altar and reveal a staircase. And underneath is a whole bunch of children and this old lady with a crucifix saying how, stay back, you filthy demon spawn, or I'll send you all back to hell. And that's where the issue ends. Finding a bunch of kids. Why did I say that this isn't what I expected? Twofold. One, the opening exposition where they're just constantly accessing the databanks. It plays off weird. It's a bit overwritten in that regard. There's one caption in here where it's 97% downloaded. Upload complete. It's like, okay, but I understand flavor text, but did you really need to put that on a page that already had 9 caption boxes, all of the same, accessing file 522/A-2. Okay, just tell me what I need to know. I don't, yes, flavor text, nice, cool. I don't need that, though. And then I genuinely didn't know anything about Creature Commandos. I didn't know they were a thing at all. So it very much was surprising me. I figured this was kind of going to be a Hellboy-ish sort of situation. But I thought maybe, Creature Commandos seems like it would be a second or third arc thing, not a let's get in. I figured first arc would be let's get situated with Frankenstein and then we'll introduce a team, but I guess not. So yeah, I just didn't expect. I expected more of a Hellboy sort of aesthetic, not so much a Men in Black super high tech. Oh yes, we have this 3-inch city that our entire base is in. It's weird. That being said, the writing wasn't bad. I didn't dislike anything it did. It was perfectly adequate in everything it did. Jeff Lemire, he always does great. I can see they're setting up this particular mission. I don't know what they're setting up beyond that. Just the only thing that was a long-term thing seemed to be Frankenstein's having marital problems. So that's about all we got to go off of. Art-wise, it's scratchy, it's very dark, but it fits the mood. It's very much, like I said, Hellboy style. This is literally DC's answer to Hellboy, and I can't fault it for that. It's fine. I just wish that Frankenstein maybe had a bit more, because he was so just straight to business that it didn't feel like I really knew anything about him yet. So we'll see how that goes moving forward. As for this issue, pretty average. I would say, I'm going to give it like a 7. 7 is fine. It's fine. It's not blowing me away. It's fine. It works, but maybe it can get better over time. But hey, I'm not going to worry too much if it doesn't. Resurrection Man, number 1, written by Dan Abnett, art by Fernando Dagnino, I don't know. This was one of the first ones that I picked up way back when I started collecting, and I just never read it because I didn't know who Resurrection Man was. I mean, there's still a lot that's a mystery even after reading issue 1, but I assumed he was just a dude who couldn't stay dead. But there is significantly more about him. So I guess let's just hop right into it. We open up at the local morgue. Dude is on an operating table. Well, I don't know what to call it, but he's on a metal table. He's the why am I blanking on the name? The coroner. That's the one. The coroner. She packs up for the night, goes home. And then there's a bolt of lightning, and the dude opens up his eyes, and there's a whole thing about how coming back this time tastes like metal. And he lists out all the things that are metal in the room, and he says everything tastes of metal, except the unimaginable pain of coming back to life. And you get this guy, he's nude, he stands up, there's all these like strands of DNA and lightning that are funneling into him as he's screaming. He says how the night shift is punching in. He waits until they walk out and he grabs one of the guy's clothes. He says, he particularly comments on the identity, like his wallet that he just stole. So he's like, so Mike Brook, attendant at the county medical examiner's office. Sorry about this. But he uses an ATM card to get some cash. And then he goes to an airport to catch a plane. And apparently, he has no idea why he's doing this. It's all just compulsions, just things that he feels he has to do every time he comes back. He has a new compulsion that he feels he has to do. Additionally, it's revealed that every time he comes back, he has a new power. I can't tell if he has access to all of his old powers, in which case he should be at like Superman levels of power, but he has a power this time. And this time it is like changing electromagnetic stuff. He can like make lightning and magnetize stuff and stuff like that. Thus the metal that he mentioned earlier. So he's at the airport. He's looking around trying to figure out, why am I going to this flight? Who's going to be the person that's like influencing me this time, that like I have to save or whatever. He looks around, and he's just kind of making guesses as to who these people are based off of what he can see and also what he can taste. He can taste the metal of like this kid's piercings. He can taste the metal in this old veteran's like wounds. He helps a baby get its toy by attracting the metal that's around its collar. He can feel the metal of like the the air marshal's gun. And finally gets on the plane. Can't figure out why he's there yet. And then this woman sits next to him with this huge teardrop tattoo, a red teardrop tattoo. And he didn't see her get on the plane. He's wondering how she could possibly be here, even after like the doors were shut. But they're taking off. A storm's going on. Her name is Sue. Our main character's name is Mitch Shelley. He only goes by Mitch in this so far. I'm just going based off the back cover. Mitch Shelley. So she's like, hey, you afraid of flying? She's like, well, yeah, it's a rational fear. considering I don't have wings. And she does the same thing that he did in the airport, listing off all these people, but this time, like, where they're going. The kid's going for an ex-girlfriend. The war veteran's going for a funeral for a buddy. The mom of the child is going for a sister in the hospital, and the sister is not going to make it. And Mitch is like, wow, you seem very sure of yourself in that. Because she is. They hit some turbulence in the storm, and then the woman stands up and is like, all right, time to go. And she turns into this, I'd have to say just demon. She turns into like this demon. She's got 4 arms, big black feathered wings, a head that looks like mildly goat-shaped, and she's like, there isn't time. We got to go now. And apparently Mitch's soul is overdue. So her wings immediately tear open the roof of the cabin. The air marshal gets up, takes a shot, but obviously he's taken care of in no time at all. Mitch then pushes her out the emergency door. They both fly out onto the side of the plane. He grapples on with his magnetic abilities. And the demon is like, why are you fighting for them? Like, look, the afterlife, and you look at the storm, and it's just these faces all staring at him. And he's like, these are phantoms of the afterlife closing in to claim you. Your soul is so ripe, and everybody wants it. And she's like, and I'm gonna be the one that takes it because it's too valuable to lose. Apparently, this flight was always going to be doomed, and that's why the demon had to show up so that she could be the one that escorts his soul and therefore gets the claim on it. But he uses his powers. He takes her out, like straight up explodes her. Then Mitch loses his grip and falls into a turbine, and he's dead. But if you figured by the title, he's not. So he wakes up. This time, coming back tastes like pain, anger, regret, bitterness. He's upset that so many people had to die. He's running through these woods where firefighters are putting out the fires. He catches his breath. He learns what his new power is this time. He melts into water. And then we cut away from him. And we cut back to that original coroner's office. And there are 2 women there who are like, hey, look, it's a simple question. Where was that John Doe? The John Doe that was here, but now he's not here. What happened to him? And the women are arguing, saying like, hey, I don't know why he's not answering your questions. Maybe he's just being a dick. And so they end up killing him. They shoot him. And they're like, wait, I've got an idea. How about the next person we ask? We ask all the same questions, but this time we take off of their gag. And he's like, that's a good idea. And then they call in another coroner in order to continue questioning them, but more just seemingly torture. Cut to one of the firefighters out on the field getting a phone call. Apparently, he's talking about how he had Mitch. He saw the corpse. He was getting ready to tag him, and then Mitch just ran off. We get a bit of an explanation. Same explanation I gave you about like how he gets his powers and blah, blah, blah. But he straight up says that his soul is bright and polished. Like it's come back that many times that it's actually like smoothed it off and made it perfect. And apparently both angels and demons are looking for this guy's soul. Like every side wants him. So they're trying to just get him and bring him to one side or the other. Last page is Madame Xanadu doing a fortune shuffle. She, no matter how many times she shuffles these cards, the Resurrection Man always comes back, and it spells trouble. And that's it. I like it. It's such a mystery. Like, it's setting up this big, like, I'm always a sucker for battles between heaven and hell. That's me personally. It's a good story. It's a classic story. But no, I'm a sucker for that. And it sets up a good mystery in that nothing really gets resolved that much in this issue. We understand his power set just so we know what we're playing with, but we still don't know, like, how did it start? What's the drive behind the compulsions? Why does he do the things he does? Why does everybody want his soul so much? Like, yes, they say it's polished, but is there, like, something that he's destined for? Who were those girls that were torturing the people? Because they didn't look like demons or angels. They just looked like 2 normal people. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and I think it's going to shape up to be a pretty good mystery series overall. So I'm looking forward to see how that comes out. And even if they resolve the mysteries, I'm still down for just a good battle between heaven and hell. It's a solid setup for a story. Art, pretty good, pretty fantastic. It's got a cell shading thing going on, so it could be either hit or miss with that. But it's definitely got that sort of dark vibe to it. Like you could feel it being published at Vertigo. Like it's got that sort of style to it. But yeah, it's overall, it's good. It's a fine issue. I'm going to give it a 7.5. More so because it's not so much the issue itself, it's what it's promising that it's going to do. So I'm looking forward to it. Like I'm definitely looking forward to it each month. But yeah, I just hope it delivers. That's the end game. I just hope that in the end, Resurrection Man can come back. I'm done now. And that's it. That is all of this week's books done. And as such, marks halfway through the 52 new titles that we have to cover number one for. Technically, we are one over because Justice League would be slotted on week 3, I believe, but got slotted into week -1. So actually, that means that we have a reprieve next week. Instead of our normal 13 books, we only have 12. Huzzah! Speaking of which, let's talk about what 12 they are. Coming up next week, September 21st, 2011, we have Batman number 1, Birds of Prey number 1, Catwoman number 1, Nightwing number 1, Red Hood number 1, Supergirl number 1, Green Lantern Corps number 1, Captain Atom number 1, DC Universe Presents number 1, Wonder Woman number 1, Blue Beetle number 1, and Legion of Superheroes numero uno. That is 12 books. 5 of them are in the Batman family. That is ridiculous. That seems like a bit of poor planning, if I'm being honest. Additionally, DC Universe Presents is an anthology book. It will be covering many different heroes throughout that probably couldn't sell their own book if they tried. So, first one, the first arc we'll be dealing with, the first hero is Deadman. DC Universe Presents Deadman. So, check out that next week. Speaking of those books, though, if you have anything you'd like to share about the books I listed off, the books I've reviewed today, or any books coming up at any point in the future, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. That is DC Comics Podcast, all one word. Use the hashtag New52 because I get lonely and I want to know I'm not the only person going through this. Please fill that void. Additionally, we have a Patreon, Mild Fuzz TV. That is Patreon, Mild Fuzz TV. I have to pay into it, so do you. Please, I can't pay much more. Oh, but that wraps up episode number 2. I think that what we need to come to realize is that the New 52 is not remembered for its great titles. It's remembered because it didn't have great titles. And we need to just accept that for what it is and not procrastinate until the last minute to read all of these books for an episode that has to come out on Tuesdays. Because there is no good way to really do that. Not that I'm speaking from experience or anything, just putting out there, you know. Don't procrastinate, kids. It's bad for your health. And by that I mean your mental health. Good God, your mental health. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm going to go read next week's books because I'm not going to procrastinate. And hopefully they won't suck as much. I'm not crossing my fingers. But as always, try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.